Good evening, folks. Welcome to another old session from the Wise Asylum. Well, there's been a lot going on now, isn't there? And I don't like what I'm seeing in some departments in relation to what are they setting us up for. I think they might be setting us up for another round of what was from 2020. Well, I suppose we'll have to see. And we will have a little look at that just to see whether I'm on the right track or not. Of course, you can decide. But a couple of other things that have happened this week. The Dutch government has collapsed. Now that's got to be good, given the way that they've been treating the farmers. So that's collapsed, and it's got to be because of what they're doing to the farmers. Just showing that if the people stand, if you come together and you stand up, you don't need to get violent, you don't have to get stupid like they are in France. But of course, that's not really French people doing that, is it? It's the colonial side of it, recolonising, because they don't like colonisation, so they're copying it, because they're clever. They're clever lads. So there's that going on. We don't want to be doing that. We're in the civilised world here in the West, and we don't do that. We have a system set up to actually counter that stuff, but of course people forget to use it, because they have no idea what it means to be on these islands, whether that's law or history or whatever you want to call it. None of it's working because nobody uses it, and of course because of that, the few that do get blocked, and the state gets away with it. You've got to be tenacious to make headway, or prep the thing first so it's solid, and then away you go with it and push it in there and keep pushing. So that's the only way. And if anything, the Dutch farmers are a shining light in relation to that. So that's got to be a good thing. Something else that's been interesting this week, and of course, it's odd, it's strange, but is it? Now, of course, a lot of people are going on, oh, it's a lizard, it's a lizard, David Icke's right. Well, she didn't say that. And this is referring to a lady on a flight in the old US who basically stopped the flight, got off, which meant everybody to get off, because she made the claim that one of the hostesses at the back of the plane who'd come to a rescue because the guy she was sat next to, she accused of nicking her earbuds. And she was claiming that this, whatever it were, wasn't human, wasn't real. So of course, obviously, the internet's full of, oh, it's a lizard, it's an alien, it's this and it's that and it's that. But not necessarily, because I think sometimes we lose sight of the fact that transhumanism, that very thing that they've been pushing for, 15, 20, more years, which is to merge humans with machines. And of course, that's what Terminator were all about. That's what they were putting in the mix for you. To agree with by not disagreeing with it. Because people don't realise Hollywood entertainment, it's all about telling you what they're going to do. You think you're being entertained and it's just jolly fun, but they're telling you exactly what it is they intend to do down the line. So we'll have a little look at this. Where are we here? This flossie. It says, the guy is not real. Astonishing woman, distressed woman has meltdown on plane over imaginary passenger and demands to be left off. So the press, the media are presenting it as an imaginary passenger, like it wasn't even there, but it wasn't even the passenger. The problem was with the passenger, but ultimately she was accusing one of the hostesses of not being real. It says a woman was filmed in distress aboard an American Airlines flight in Dallas. The clip was shared on TikTok on Sunday and has been seen 1 million times. The original post said the flight was delayed 3 hours due to the incident. And of course, people are trying to hunt this girl down, but unfortunately, it doesn't seem like anybody's found her, which is rather sinister. in and of itself, I have to say. A woman's meltdown was caught on video. She frantically managed to get off a plane and claimed someone at the back of the aircraft was not real. Not someone, an air hostess. Footage shared on TikTok Sunday night shows a woman seeming in distress on board an American Airlines flight departing from Dallas Fort Worth Airport. I'm telling you, I'm getting the F off, and there's a reason why I'm getting the F off, and everyone can either believe it or they cannot believe it. The unidentified woman is heard saying as she walks to the front of the plane, I don't give two Fs, but I'm telling you right now that that back there is not real, she adds, pointing towards the back of the plane. Now, that looks like any normal flossie to me. She's not fruit bat. Obviously everybody's trying to say she was pissed or she was on drugs, but she doesn't look like she's on drugs to me. And I've watched it, all that's available, and she doesn't sound like she's a woman on drugs or alcohol to me either. Now, the press are hiding the fact that it's this air hostess here. I don't know whether you can see my little thing going round at the back, that she's saying isn't real. Of course, the press, this is Mail Online, so what can you expect? They're trying to obfuscate that. An imaginary passenger, nothing to do with the passenger, save for she accused the guy of nicking her earpods. So it's that there, that hostess there. Oh, what's that? Oh, what have I done? Did you get a better picture? Not really. But anyway, it's that big thing there at the back, which does look a bit odd, I have to say. Usually they're beautiful flossies, aren't they? So they're obfuscating for a fact, so they've gone into full gear to sort of make this woman look a bit odd. When you don't get away from the lizard, and the alien, and all that malarkey, this girl, she's obviously serious about what she's saying. She's not mucking about. So my guess would be what we could be seeing, or what she saw, was them introducing these transhumans into our system. And of course, maybe she saw a robotic arm or eye or something, because that's what they're doing when you look at the patents, when you look at the data, the financing for these scientific experiments that have been going on at MIT and Harvard and all these top whack military affiliated sort of labs. Well, that's not going to come on, is it? So I don't know why that's not coming on. It's not coming on, so we'll not try and bother. But I'm wondering if that's what she's seen. You know, she doesn't look like she's out wrong with that girl, I don't think. So I thought it were interesting just in that respect, because is that what's going on? Are they now putting in these transhumans? Because I won't be surprised. I won't be surprised in the slightest if that's what they're doing. Because they're not messing about, and we've been looking at their stuff, the old timers on this game, for a long time. We've known about this transhumanism. It's not nothing new. In fact, there is one guy in particular runs his entire website based on what he calls technocracy, which sort of incorporates all the data that pulls this together. So it's not some pie in the sky that their intent is to merge humans with machines, and then eventually, as the Matrix films actually showed you, to turn us into nothing other than batteries or energy. Providers for whatever it is they're building in this machine world that they've got cracking on going everywhere. So I thought that were a bit weird. Don't know whether you've seen it or not, but there we go. Who's on? Untitled says, hello Sean, good evening to you. Untitled, what's the purpose of Deuteronomy laws? Deuteronomy is meant to show us that we have a choice before us every day. Well, I mean, I've given my take on what I see as the Old Testament, especially in that it's just a rehash of older data and documents that they probably found, which you can see really if you look at the Midrash. If you look at the Midrash and study the Midrash, you can see basically, they obviously at some point found a load of data, but couldn't, perhaps, it weren't complete. And they've merged it, so Abraham and Sarah, that's a take on a Sanskrit got nothing to do with biblical tradition. It's taken from somewhere else, same with Moses. It's a complete copy of Sargon the Great. So, for me, the Old Testament is just a rehash of nonsense put together by the same priesthood that's pretty much running the show today. And we know their works through the Talmud, the Zohar, and the inverted Kabbalah, which was originally, in my opinion, the Druid system that they nicked when they demolished them, using Rome's legions, of course. Because by that time, the Carthaginians had got full control of Rome anyway. You know, you've got to go way, way back into the beginnings of the Republic to find the white honkies that set Rome up, the Scythians, the Trojans. And because you can take it to the 3rd century BC and the fallout between Belinus and Brennus here on the British Isles. Basically, off that, Brennus did basically sack Rome. And for me, started the dictatorship kind of things. But Belinus and Brennus were Trojan. So make of that as you will, unless mother to both, wife to Donald the Bold, known as Molmutus, King Molmutus of Cornwall, were playing around, which may be true. She could have done it, because in them days, back in the matriarchal times, the woman's womb was her own, and it was for her to choose whom she put her offspring in. And that were a big part of why they shifted it to the patriarchal system, because the males were just pretty sick of bringing up other people's kids. And I can't blame them, to be quite honest. So that's old history, and we don't need to get into that. But yeah, Old Testament, for me, it's just a lot of garbage. It's a rehash of what's been, and they projected it into the future. And we know that idea through studying the Jesuits, who call it futurism. And they were very proud to announce at the time of the Reformation that, in their opinion, the Protestants had come back to the church because they'd installed futurism in its theology, which they had. I mean, there's nobody more fervent about this end times, all the malarkey garbage, blah, 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 than the American evangelicals. So it certainly did work in relation to scooping back the reformers, the protesters, against what was clearly a Vatican gone up its arse again at that time. Now again today we're suffering that again, and we'll have a look at this again in a bit. We've got a bit more data I want to just look at in relation to these Vatican assets that were pulled in September last year. Because when you start to look into the shipping lingo, the shipping language, we know that after the assets were pulled in, it looked to me and to many that they'd shifted the cargo, as it would be, the assets pulled in September last year, has been handed or unloaded from the ship of the Vatican and put on a temporary ship sailing out to Saudi as a holding ship, as we might say, or holding bank, whatever way you want to look at it, whichever lingo you're coming from, ready for it to be moved into the Noahide Ark. So we'll have a little look at that again in a bit. Because the old Pope, this pretend Pope, has just appointed 21 cardinals. Now, you know, if you get in power and you want to cement that power so it remains when you've gone, you're going to have to pick your cardinals, aren't you? You're also going to have to pick your bishops. I can't claim to know enough about how the Catholic system really works, but I'm pretty sure at cardinal level, archbishop and bishop level has got to be the positions you need to secure in order you can continue the garbage that you've set going. And it looks like he's done just that. And these cardinals, one of them is included is in Jerusalem, Hong Kong, which are places that don't really have a Catholic sort of flock. So in and of itself, that's a little bit telling, is it not? But we can see that everything that's going on today, since Vatican II, when in my opinion, they managed to implement the whole system. And I still think the Fatima Fatima, because who is a lady? A lady is not. It's not the Holy Mother, is it? It's not the Queen of Heaven. It's not a lady's not a queen, is it? So it can't be the Catholics' heavenly Queen, the Mother, the Queen of Heaven, as it were. It can't be that deity. This is a lady. Who, in my opinion, being 1917, once the Bolsheviks had took Russia, and then started killing all the Orthodox bishops, cardinals, the system took it over completely. In order, Stalin, remember, the great uber atheist, the man who stood atop the supreme atheist expression through a nation that we'd ever known in our current histories, then decided, he was going to take the Orthodox Church back under its wing and put it back to Christendom, which is absolute garbage. You know, the Bolsheviks were running riot in the Orthodox Church from 1917 up to Stalin. You're not telling me that the Bolsheviks then didn't gain full control of it at its top levels. Of course it did. And then, while running the atheist country, Stalin did then, according to political history, should have saved it. Well, no, he didn't. He reinstituted it as a power and kept it because, of course, it had been totally no high. So that would be my take on that. With that, but also let's not forget the Fatima stuff came out, and again, I don't know who Fatima is in relation to the church because I don't understand the theology as it was, but I spent quite a few years searching me out with that data through actually studying Malachi Martin way back in the day. I think it's pretty clear that at 1960 the third secret had to be revealed to the Catholic flock. And so you're looking before Vatican II, you're looking before JFK, you know. So this is before that it was supposed to be released so that everybody could see what were coming. But the whole thing with the Fatima thing is it classes as a punishment. Now that straight away stands everybody down, doesn't it? Oh, well, there's nothing we can do about it, kind of thing. A bit like the biblical so-called scholars shove this end time shit down your neck, but never give you the option that you can actually change this. It's just buckle down. This is what's going on. That for me were supported when I asked my mother, who were taught by nuns, like most Catholics were back in the 50s and 60s, when she were like still looking at me as like he's still gone crazy. And I just said to her, look, you're not telling me, taught by nuns, they didn't teach you this stuff. She said they did, but they never told us or give us the impression we could do anything about it. So on the back of Fatima, for me, I would say the beneficiaries of that script can only be the Babylons, the whore lovers, the Molech worshippers, the infant eaters. Where the Luciferians stand on that, I don't know, in that sense, but you can certainly get an idea that a big chunk of the Templars weren't actually on side with a lot of what were going down. We have to remember Richard the Lionheart being an Angevin, doing his deal with Saladin as he did, probably had absolutely nothing to do with the Templars as a sort of society, which again is interesting, because why then would they be all over the US, all over Lebanon, all these different places, hiding stuff that they'd found? Why would they do that? If they weren't stopping the existing status quo, such as Hospitallers, it's Teutonic Knights, it's your Vatican, etc. Because people forget, those crusades were sanctioned by popes, so without which it wouldn't have had the power it had. Eventually leading up to them destroying the Habsburgs, which did represent the old church, and demolishing their power and might through the Prussians, the Teutonic Knights. So all that nonsense has gone on in the past. So we can see that these assets have been called in by the Vatican. They're being held in Saudi, in my opinion, waiting for the ship the Noahide Ark, to be built or set sail, as it were. Obviously the cargo has to be put in first. So there we go with that. But this Fatima stuff, it's like, it was very clear to stop this secret society Babylon system being implemented over Rome, that it was important that Russia were consecrated back to the Sacred Heart. So that's then your Heavenly Mother, isn't it? It's the Queen of Heaven, as it were, the feminine side, the sacred feminine. But obviously we've been on Vatican II since 63, haven't we? We've been on that since 63. Kennedy, from what I can gather, 3 months before he was killed, from every orifice he was being encouraged to stop what he was doing, going against the CIA, going against the Vatican, etc., etc. To the point that a month before he was commanded to the Vatican to take all the communion from the Pope himself, to which he told them to kiss his ass. Hence, then the CIA so involved in his assassination, because the CIA are basically the Prussian Jesuit Knights of Malta kind of side of things. Mainly, I think, Jesuits. When I've looked into it, the CIA seems to be loaded with them, and always has been. So I don't know, but from 63 onwards, the Church as a doctrine, as a system, as a power, were pretty much removed. Vatican II and the chief of the most powerful nation on the planet, the US, was also taken out. So since 63, everybody, so that's your mum and dad if you're my age, were all being force-fed Vatican II. In my opinion, the whore of Babylon then was implanted upon the church, so that the church from the 60s has only been kept so, and only right to the mid-70s, because up until the 70s it seemed to get away with this idea that it was as it always had been. So they had the command level through the Vatican II system enough to keep the existing church still looking like as a front to everybody the flock, i.e. still alive and good, going on well. Which I think when you look at what Malachi Morton were telling you, even though a lot of people said, well, they were a big part of installing Vatican II, I don't understand, I don't know that for sure. But what I do know is that Vatican II actually positioned the Roman Church under the Russian Orthodox Church. Yeah, as a theology, as a I don't know what the words are correctly, but from Vatican II, what it actually did was implant the Russian Orthodox Church, bearing in mind it had been Bolshevized and Stalin had raised it back up again. Vatican II, in my eyes, is the Noahide system. It's the whore of Babylon system because, of course, it's a slave system. So that'd be my take on this Fatima thing. So I think if we take that on board now and say clearly that Vatican II from 63 is the whore, and that the Vatican since the 60s has been moving to accomplish what Fatima prophecy said, which was to consecrate Russia. It's not consecrate as in the church consecration. This is the Babylon system retaking Russia, and Putin is in on that. So Putin's in on that because we know he's tied to Kissinger, we know he's tied to Abad Lumovich. Same that all the leaders are. So are we seeing this Ukraine war as that Babylon's Molech Luciferian consecration of Russia as a landmass, and that this Wagner Group coup, as was because the leader of it, he is a real Russian nationalist. He's a proper Russian nationalist. Was that the first move, or a move, to prevent Putin from allowing the WEF, Kissinger Associates, Committee 300, the whole system, to actually carry out that consecration, but not a consecration to the church and its sacred art, but to the Babylon system? I would say that is probably a big part of what we're seeing play out with the Ukraine. Not only that, it's also being touted that what they're also trying to do through Zelensky or Vladimir Soros is to so deflate the population in the Ukraine that they scream blue murder for military bases in the Ukraine, specifically, well, either NATO, but more importantly probably the United States. Again, that's it's a game that's on the table, which would be interesting, would it not? You can get two huge United States military bases in there, then Babylon has that land under its wing, and pretty much from that point on, whatever is demanded under this so-called consecration of blood is going to carry forth in it. It's going to be achieved. So that's two possibilities in relation to what is going on with this Ukraine. Biden's now going to send cluster bombs. I mean, that's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous that they're going to even contemplate such things. Sunak's saying he's not backing it, but you can guarantee the meeting tonight, you can guarantee there'll be a U-turn on that. Because they need it. Whatever Biden wants, Biden is what? He is this Babylon system. There's no Obama Babylon system. Clinton, Bush, all coming from the CIA. Remember, Clinton's handler was George H. Bush. George H. Bush were in power for a long time because he were running Clinton, and then he got in himself, and he were also, well, not directly, but it would appear that other guy were running, George W. What's he called? I can't remember his name. Big Rally Burton, Dick Cheney. Was George W.'s handler. But of course, George H. was still up there at the top. Having said that, I did once watch a video where, and this was the early 90s, and so after they moved to invade Iraq on the first Desert Storm thing, that he'd gone to, I think it was Japan, having a meal, his wife was next to him, and he appeared to die of some kind of food poisoning there on camera. So did we really have George H. Bush in after? Because George H. Bush did not want to go and invade Iraq. He told Maggie Thatcher that when she rang him up and said, you have to. Basically said, nah, we don't want to be going over there. But of course, through the Secretary of State office, the Crown over in London controls the United States federal system, and Maggie sent message through there. Well, no, actually, she flew out there and said, George, you will do it, or you're going to get your bottom smacked. Who knows what were actually really going on there, but George H. Bush it was not his intention at all to invade Iraq. In fact, he fought it best he could for about 20 minutes. So there you go with that. There's more going on with Ukraine than just this idea that Russia is a saviour in some way. Putin's their man. Putin is their man in Russia. Did this Wagner Group coup, was it an attempt in reality to take back Russia back into Russian hands, which means getting rid of Putin, means getting rid of the current KGB, doesn't it? Because that is the tie to Israel, it's the tie to Bolshevism, it's the tie through the back end to China. Nothing like that were going on until the Bolsheviks took over Russia in 1917, and from the get-go started to feed ammunition, ideas and money over into China, and then growing the communist regime in China. This is what's happened, this is what's going on. So maybe that is a bit something like what's going on there. It would make sense. It's practical. It's a feasible reality in, and just pushing it back to this idea of consecration. It's blood, guts, weapons sales, and outright murder in it over there at the moment. So if that's consecration, I don't think it has anything to do with the man or any kind of church that might represent him. So that'd be my take on what's actually going on with this shitbag regime thing called Ukraine. You've got Boris now. Boris is still up and down giving it, let's send in these bombs, blah, 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 blah. But it also shows me with Boris, the shitbag, the blonde bombshell. Obviously, they're moving him into there to become mayor again, aren't they? So what's he doing? He's attacking Sunak. Not Sunak. But he's now attacking him, slagging him off for this system that they've set up with all cameras. He's now attacking Sadiq Khan on that. But yet, he introduced it 13 years ago. You know, can you see how they depend on you having a memory of a fish because you're not paying attention, because you're too busy playing with yourself, watching telly, getting pissed and taking medication on time each day? They depend on you not remembering what went on 10 years ago. Yeah, they depend on it. Politics today depends on it. Which is why the internet before 2014 were dragging in people from 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s who were experts in the field, and all their interviews, all their works, like Norman Dodd and his investigation through the Rees Committee into the foundations and how they were the cause of the takeover of America, the education system specifically. That's the same here. Carnegie, a foundation. All our libraries were built in the 1800s by Carnegie Foundation. You don't get any of that. These youngsters today have no concept of that stuff, and nobody that's out there today, Alex Joel, all of them, none of them discuss that stuff anymore. They don't want to bring that forward into your mix today because the young ones are just woke. They don't need to know that, you know? So they're setting it all up as this is the game and it's always been this way. It's the good, bad, white hats and the black hats. Well, we looked at that last week, didn't we? We can say that began with the split in the black nobility back in the 1300s. And we're going to have a little look. We're going to pursue that subject matter a little bit further today, because the wiki page in and of itself is quite interesting, because it takes it up after the histories that we've already covered when it comes to the black nobility, because we can specifically now start to put that together and show you how it's playing today. We can see it playing out in America, white hat, black hat. QAnon tards have gone apeshit with it. All your expected Shills, Rogan, all these toss bags pushing that, they're keeping that going, moving it. But this actually starts to show us how that's affecting Blighty, how it's affecting Europe. We can show it now through, I broke into it last week, the Debalcony cult. very interesting bunch. You can see that within them, you've got Luciferian ideology, you've got the Molex. You've got them both in this debulking it. You start to look into them a little bit further, and then you're bringing in name stealing. The name stealers, and you can bring that into the game because you can see that that is clearly what they've been doing. And now we get this debulking it family. Yeah, very interesting. So we'll look at that in a minute. So I'll just have a look at what you guys are doing. And then first we'll get into this new script that I think is a setup for maybe autumn and another round of the shit and garbage that they set off in 2020. We can choose allegiance to things of our own creation, or we can choose life and wisdom by following Yahweh's commands. Well, Yahweh is Saturn Matrix, that's what it is. One Elohim, all on his own, demanding, commanding, puts you in a garden. Yeah. Now, somebody sent me an interesting little. In fact, I can actually play it for you because it's very short. But have a little listen to this.
The Garden of Eden was a laboratory, an outdoor laboratory. It was enclosed and had guards at the gates. It even tells you there were guards at the gates in the modern day Bible.
What do you mean?
Keep them in and keep everybody else out.
So they would put humans in a garden as if it was a laboratory to watch them grow like fruit?
They would give them times that they can mate and times that they couldn't mate. This is all written in text. They were treated like animals. When they created Adam, they created what they had hoped to be a version of a human that can replicate easily. So after they created him, they then tried to mate him with one of the existing hominids that they had modified, but it was more like a clone, and it still wasn't able to reproduce. So what they did was, in the Bible it says they took out his rib. They didn't take his rib out, they took blood out of his bone. And they took that blood, that's where the DNA is located, and they made a female clone from Adam's bone, which was Eve. So that became the most advanced female, and he was the most advanced male for Homo sapiens sapien. And they were able to then sexually mate and reproduce.
They were like mating down so they got the perfect human?
Right, that's what it was.
Wow.
Interesting take on that malarkey. It's just all garbage on garbage on garbage, and it should be shoved down everybody's neck forever. And everybody takes it as fact. So this is where you're talking the Yahweh matrix grid system. It's the garden. It's an experiment, a lab. One Elohim. One of them wouldn't let you. And when you get into the, as I said, you look at the Hebrew interpretation. And even the Greek, especially the Greek, because that came first. The Elohim never says the word God. That's an English translation. So that they can misuse it. But Elohim is plural. But yet in the garden it's one. And he states in the Hebrew, you will worship no other Elohim except me. Right? So this is where all your Noahide stuff's coming from. It's the garden. It's a garden gig. Your plants, your little farm animals, if you're sucking into the Yahweh grid. Paul says, good evening Sean and everyone. Good evening to you, Paul. Meander V. I'm Dutch. The new Farmers' Party is probably controlled up. Well, you could quite well be right, and it won't. In fact, I'd be surprised if it wasn't. But what are they actually achieving in relation to? Okay, so this guy's collapsed now. Have the farmers got a bit of a breather? Have they got a bit of a breather for themselves? I mean, I looked at it from the get-go, and a bit like what they were trying to set up here. At the same time, raising this one particular Welsh farmer up to get people's attention. He seems a nice geezer, and I was quite enamoured by him for quite a while, and then all of a sudden, who turns up on his farm? Jacob Rees-Mogg. Then who turns up on his farm? Michael Portillo. And I'm thinking, well, what the f***? Why, if you are a super rep, would you have these two fruitcakes knocking on your door and you're inviting them in and they're best friends? Now, okay, so we looked at that and I thought, well, there's two possibilities. A, he's in and that were a move to try to get the Conservatives on side. Or B, and it could be, it was an attempt at besmirching this farmer guy by having these guys put on him so that we all think, oh, he's got trolled. So that were going on here. I were watching the Dutch stuff, and I did think, it looks a little bit too, the spokespersons for it. I just thought, they look a little bit too not farmers, these people. They look a bit too business side of things. They're not really, as you'd expect, AB farmer, AB cows and my sheep. They didn't come across like that. They came across as like something you'd expect to hear off Edit City, just with farmers' things on. So what you're saying there, Meander V, could quite possibly be correct, but just give us an update if you can on what they're actually doing. What's it mean, this collapse for the farmers, and how far did they actually get in destroying farming in Dutch? Because it's the biggest breadbasket in Europe, for God's sake. Next being Ukraine. Now big portions of land in Ukraine have been handed over to these big agricultural companies, and a lot of the biggest one of them is controlled by the House of Windsor. Interesting. Upon which, and I've meant to be mentioning this for ages, and I haven't. But the first point at which I knew that Charles's coronation on England was not being supported by the elite might be quite surprising. Because first you have to go back and look at every event that's happened in the last 10 years where something big in the royal fantasy has occurred. So Queen's Jubilee, William's marriage, etc. Each of them days, one thing happened, which is unusual for Blighty. It doesn't usually work like this. But they were absolutely red hot, scorching days. Beautifully red hot, scorching days. Right? The king, so-called, the uber monarch, on his day, it pissed all over him, didn't it? It rained. So he weren't getting that. That's a signal for the elect to understand that this guy's not going to be in for long. Okay, it's not the intention for him to be in for long. Yet, up there in Aggie Squeezer land, and the Scottish Rite, Templar kind of shit, he had a nice day. And they do seem to be making a bigger fuss about that than they do and did about the one on England. So, that my first point, it pissed down on him, and I knew straight away that this monarch, this King of England thing, which he hasn't even mentioned, it's things are not what they seem. And unfortunately, the hapless masses, you out there, you don't give a shit. You know what I'm saying? You don't care. I mean, people like me are now starting to realise that we're talking, we've got no audience. There is nothing out there for us to talk to. We're talking to ourselves. Yeah? It's getting pretty pointless now because nobody gives. Yeah? You'll sit there, you'll watch stuff, you'll listen to stuff, you'll pass the odd headline across and around, but ultimately you've no intention of doing about it. No intention whatsoever. And if nothing else, in these last few months, that's cemented in my mind that I am wasting my energy. I am wasting my time. You know? For instance, last week I said, let's get a forum going, not a single peep. Nobody gives. You don't care. This is why they're running riot. So, it's pretty garbage, really, to be honest. Cos says, again, I thought it was the guy sitting next to her with the green hoodie that she thought wasn't real. No. There's about, well, when it started, so Monday is probably when I started looking at this, up to Wednesday, there were quite a few different versions of it, but from the get-go, beginning, they were clear, and then it started to get a little bit hazy. What it was, the fuss began over some earbuds that she claimed the guy sitting next to her had robbed, right? Over came an air hostess to help, bent down, And that's when she saw something, right? So that's when she saw something. What that is, we don't know. But they can't track her down, so that's a bit worrying. I mean, if this is serious, like, she's seen something really serious that they don't want people to see, because when the rest of the passengers got on the second time when it set off, they wouldn't let her on. Now, she was coming back on because they'd made it clear that the staff that were on had gone. So they've not tried to make a fuss about that, say, well, why would you want to go back on? No, because clearly they'd changed the staff and told everybody that they'd changed the staff. Yeah, that's why we know it was one of the air hostesses that she was talking about. Okay, so Monday, Tuesday, you were getting that. Wednesday, third off, which I didn't see after Wednesday. That's gone, and it's hazy, and media are not reporting that at all. In fact, they're trying to obfuscate it completely and saying imaginary, as we saw on the Daily Mail. So, of course, you've got the Fruit Bats United are out everywhere, and it could be the case, given it's a lizard, it's an alien, it's a this. Well, she never said that. She said it's not real. So if she saw a robotic arm when it bent down to get it, or an eye went funny, or something like that, who knows? But until they find her, and until we get an interview of her to what she really saw, we're guessing. We're guessing and we're guessing. But let's bear in mind, they're throwing diversions out everywhere as well, aren't they? I mean, look at this script that they've been playing for the last 4 days or whatever. The BBC presenter, blah, 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 spent 35 grand for some new pictures funding some drug addict. And it's like... So I've been on my Twitter quite a bit this week, and obviously that's been flowing about, so I'll give it a bit of thing. And once a day, I think it was Telegraph, had put out that it were fast being investigated, and I started to put up there, fast, it's like a soap opera script, because it's all, but no name. Everybody, you'll probably get it tomorrow morning, you'll wake up and, oh, so it's got you fixed to that, completely. Everybody. Who is it? Who gives a shit? Anyway, we know that it's riddled with paedophiles, people that are blackmailed, people that... It's been a paedophile paradise since 60s. You know, I mean, the whole TV from 60s onwards were all about tittle-tattle. You know, looking up girls' skirts, chasing girls, Benny Hill, Dick Emery, Carry On films, all this shit that come out in the 60s. And, if, you know, the baby boomer generation, that's what they are. It's what they tittle-tattle. They're not serious people. They're like infants. Which is why they've got this far with everything. And they still believe you landed on the moon. You know, it's quite ridiculous, but that's the attitude the baby boomers were manipulated to be. Infants, excited by tittle-tattle. It's no wonder the BBC is a cesspit of paedophilia, sexual deviance. It's not to be, but let's get another thing right, which is also I put out on Twitter today, and it got quite a bit of interest, but it's like, okay, I don't agree with BBC, it's full of puke, but it is one of the last bastions of nationally owned corporations, a mammoth entity, and we own it. So I think what they're going to do, this is all about with this licence fee and all this crap, which again I pointed out today, got interest on the tweet, that it's not a TV licence. It comes through the post saying TV licence. That's a lie. You don't know it's a lie. The licence is to receive broadcasts from the BBC, because that's who gets the money, not for having a TV. You know, this is nothing to do with a TV licence. It's the BBC demanding you pay a fee because you're funding it. Yeah? I mean, like I said the other week, I listened to Radio 1. And I listened to it for a day, deliberately, because it were on. If you look at paedophile grooming, your DJs, but they're going to try and destroy it because we're funding it. And if we had any sense, we'd realise that we're funding it, we can tell it how to be. And you could sit down and say, we don't like that, we don't like that, and we don't like that. And withhold your TV licence. But people don't, it's current on. I'll not be able to watch the EastEnders. You're just thinking of yourself, of course. I watched something today, put it on Twitter and Facebook, about whale accounts. that the big banks have been holding. And it's like their money, the wealth, is still there. It's nothing's been touched. It's just expanded and increased. It's you lot out there as the creditors to the banks. They're the ones that are getting shafted. Maybe it was like the Man with X-Ray Eyes movie with Ray Milland. Maybe she's seen into a different dimension. That's possible as well. It's very possible. The Schumann resonance has been acting odd. So that could be the case. There's also some very strange weather going on down in Antarctica. It's such a... where it's, the weather around the centre of the South Pole is usually like a... not quite a square, but that kind of shape. It's shifted into a triangle. And that's interesting. We are having some odd weather, aren't we? Even though I don't think geoengineering is enough for maybe what's going on. Now, I've been aware of this idea of two suns for quite some time, but every time I try to see this by capturing an image, looking, I've never seen two suns, even though there's video and images around with two suns. Maybe CGI, I don't know. But I haven't seen that, so I'm not taking that on board until I see it with my own eyes. Mine Racer, Protector of Cosmetics Co., Adrenochrome, child trafficking. Well, even that is a bit of a... I mean, that's all your Q-toid stuff. It's garbage. Your child trafficking goes on in disaster areas when the Red Cross, all these charitable forces go in, they're the trafficking systems, and war. That's where your trafficking's going on, in your face, as they present on QAnon. Yeah? But if you're looking for child trafficking, it's under your face, under your nose, and the baby boomers are calling for more of it, which is social services, the family courts, and the police taking offspring off people living alive right now today. That's your trafficking. That's what's happening with that. Okay? I've noticed this seems to be upping the game a bit, police now. Anybody goes missing, it's all over Facebook. Oh! They're trying to scare you. They're trying to scare you. Keep that fear up that they created from 2020 onwards. Because if you're still fearful, if you're still dancing in that script, you're still full of fear. You're shitting yourself. Liam treats... what puzzles me is Oxfam. They were done for child abuse abroad as part of the charitable work a while back, but they're still running charity shops on the high street because people are stupid. NSPCC. Look, the NSPCC had an advert out about 2005-06, and it was a very long advert, right? A very long one, and they started putting it on about November because that was one of the ads that were going to blitz you all over Christmas begging for your money. And it was this child in a cot in Romania. Heartbroken. And I mean heartbroken. Right? This child had obviously been... something had happened to him. And it's going on, this fancy music. Oh, can you give us your money? Oh. And it's like, I'm thinking, what kind of cameraman would sit there and film a child in such pain and distress? And I, at the time, were doing this, but not on the internet, writing it out. So I sent that off to quite a few MPs. Within 24 hours, gone. Gone. Off the television. Right? Gone. I did the same with the RSPCA, about the same time, who had an ad out on the telly, bigging themselves up about how they're pulling 3,000 animals off the street a year, right? Give us your money, well, we do this, and look how beautiful, showing all these dogs. And then he said, and we find homes for 1,000 of these dogs a year. So I thought, okay, that's an admission that they're slaughtering 2,000 of your dogs every year. Yeah, because they hunt your dogs down. So the RSPCA hunting your dog down and then snotting them. Because they're only giving, and that's going to be an exaggerated, giving it 1,000. They're finding homes for a year. And that's what I did the same. Sent it within 24 hours, Gone. Never to be seen again. Or actually, not never to be seen again, because when Christmas time did come, the NSPCC had put a really short one on, and the RSPCA did a short one and did not have any of that data included. And that was just one guy paying attention, and not swooning at the garbage on the telly, paying attention, and then matched it with action. And that worked. And that's about 2005, 2006, before I got on anywhere near the internet. So Oxfam, no surprises, because people don't pay attention to what is being told to them, and haven't been doing for a very long time. But yeah, they're all trafficking. Bernardos, for the last, and I've gone mad about this, for the last 10 years, have been pushing, more kids need to be taken into care. More kids need to be taken into care. NSPCC, more kids need to be taken into care. They're after your children and they're taking them, and because you're looking at trafficking of children at the Q-tide garbage, you're not seeing what's going on right under your nose. Why? Because it doesn't affect you. Oh, this scum, they'll be on drugs, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, okay. You're going to learn that that's not actually what's going on the hard way down the line. You know? There's your child trafficking. Forget your Trump Q-tide shit. It's garbage. And I'm pretty sure Barossi is starting to realise that he's a fruit bat as well for pulling into this shit. It's white out, black outs. They just keep dividing themselves up. Whatever they're into. Two sides. Blah, blah, blah. Off you go. Which, if Barossi has been fooled by this, that means that 90% of anybody that believes they're operating against this old system are also controlled opposition. And they probably don't even know it, but now you get a chance to actually start to see that that is the case. That's all obfuscation, so you're not looking at what's going on in child care services, social services, family courts, and what the police are doing, what the teachers are doing, because they get a 12 grand kickback for every child referral to social services. Once a child's taken into care, the first point of call gets 50 grand. 50 grand. Then they're sent to schools. The school gets a kickback, right? Say they get 20 grand. Then they'll give it 6 weeks and then go, oh, wait a minute, this child's, we're labelling him, he's got this. It has to go then to another private corporate outsourced provider. It gets 50 grand. And they're making millions and millions and millions on your offspring if they're lucky. Because if they're not lucky, they're getting fiddled. They're getting kid fiddled. Yeah? Because have you met some of these people that foster and adopt? Have you? No. Well, just look at it this way. They're sanctioned by the people that are judges in these family courts. They're chosen by the same people that are in social services. Not you necessarily running your mill social services, because in the main, they use temps. They just advertise it on LinkedIn and you come. Yeah, so the higher level stuff, Tavistock, because that's what the social services is today, Tavistock Institute on Human Relations. Yeah, it's Molech, you know, infant killers, infant eaters. This is what they are. These are the people at the top end. So they'll get into somebody, but get into a family. They've got their kids are gone, money's been released, advertised on LinkedIn, and then they get some numpty to go then and deal with the case with the parents direct. Probably a genuine geezer, lady, whatever. But then what I noted, as I said, because I actually went through it with a young girl that actually lost her children, so I got to see the picture, that when it comes to the courts, everything that they built with the parent and the social worker together, working together, hoops have been jumped through, things have been accomplished. Then 2 days before, on the court date case, the temp is fired or put on another case. In comes some super infant teacher and completely annihilate the case, undo everything that had been done between. Yeah, that's everything's going on. That's child trafficking, right under your nose. But because the baby boomers is a suit, he used the word court, he used the word social services, he used the word teacher. Because they're only looking for tittle tackling. Did I see an ass? Did I see a tit? Can I go to Benidorm? Yeah, that's it's all going on right in front of you. But as long as they can focus your attention over here, you're not seeing what it is you're supposed to be seeing. And that's not just in child trafficking, that's in every single agenda that this Babylon state puts out. That's where it goes on. And the Red Cross, if you've ever sent a penny to Red Cross, shame on you. If you've ever sent money to NSPCC, shame on you. If you've ever sent money to Bernardo's, shame on you. Oxfam. All these organisations are the trafficking systems. That's why I've never given to Live Aid, I never gave to this Comic Relief shit. Children in Need is a paedophile ring, and I fully exposed that, 15 years ago. Put it out before I got on the internet, and I put it out when I got on the internet. It's a paedophile ring. Childline set up by Esther Ranson, so they can filter accusations against the elites. Yeah, this is what it's about. This is what's been going on. If you spent money on it for your own conscience, you funded it. You're responsible for it. Right, let me give you another idea. Okay. The Talmud. The Talmud is the uber doctrine for hubris. Okay, that's what it is. Everything that comes from it sanctions everything not seen as that elite of the Talmud is there for their delectation. Okay, this is where you get all your license to paedophilia, license to rape, license to thieve, license to deceive, license to tell lies, license to murder, or as they call it, kill. Okay? This is not murder if they do it in certain ways. The Talmud is the doctrine of Molech. That's what it is. Because it's all about them up the top there and everybody else is a farmyard animal. Everything that the Talmud touches installs that I am better than you attitude. Okay? That's where you get the slave mindset from. If you think they're only taking children for adrenochrome, think again. The Talmud is, once you take that on as your system, you're below the heart. At the next level, you're a Luciferian because you're pushing your own will and then saying it's somebody else's will or God's will. And the baser chakra system is about survival. So when you're up there with hubris, believing you're better than everybody else, you are constantly shitting yourself because you know it pits you against the rest of the world. So from that, you're going to do anything that you believe will appease the gods or God to keep you alive. Because the bottom chakra is about survival. Yeah? And as that rises up, you get the will side of things, and if you stop beneath the heart, it's all coming down there. So any doctrine that incorporates the Talmud is below the heart. It's garbage stuff. It has its reality because it's blocking itself from ascending up through the chakra system. Right? So slavery is the biggest part of why children are being taken. Okay? The adrenochrome and all that puts it into the land of the law for your average Joe out there. That's what it does. It puts it out of the reach, away from that. Yes, it goes on, but we're talking about the top end satanic rituals. So it's only a tiny part of it, and again, it's a diversion. Because the real reason this is going on is to enslave your kids. Remember this. Fundamental Islam are being promised 250 girl slaves, female slaves each. Not the average man off the ground. They're the ones that are being abused by this fundamentalist shit. 250 each they're being promised of your offspring, your wives, and your mothers if they're young enough. Because you're not interested in the males, you chop your arms off. Yeah. The fanatical Talmudists that call themselves Jews, they're being promised 2,500 female slaves each. But then they don't mind having males as well. It isn't about attacking religions, because religions exist. It's not about attacking prophets, because they, in the minds of man, exist. If you're going to start attacking that, then you're doing it from below, because that's about the limits of your ability to comprehend and then express. So it's not about attacking religions, it's not about attacking prophets. The point of attack is man's understanding and comprehension of these things, because that's where the problem is. So it's not about attacking God's prophets and religions, because they exist and they're there, they're real. It's showing people that the understanding and comprehension of it may not be as it's meant to be understood, or at least there's a higher version of comprehension that you can take from, let's just say, a parable, for instance. The same with Christianity, it's no different. Christians worship a man. It's not about worshipping a man. It's about taking on board his teaching. Muslims will say they don't worship idolatry, they don't worship it. You do. You go around witnessing the Kaaba stone, which is meteorite. That's idolatry. Now, the Noahide system doesn't want you to know that yet, because they have a plan that they want you to implement first. And you can see them putting you boys in as fronts for this system. The Isa brothers, all these other now up and coming. Yeah, the Muslims think it's great because their prophecy about when Islam is mighty. You're only going to be mighty to be the broom for the ultimate Talmudists. Because I've watched the interviews, I've read the doctrines of the uber fanatical high-end Noahides, that you are fucked the moment you've done what they want to do, not just on that alone, but because of the Kaaba and Mecca. That's idolatry, because in their opinion you are worshipping and beat your rat. So everybody, this is why I'm saying it's not attacking one over another, it's saying we're all being shafted within the paradigm at which we comprehend the universe and everything that comes out of it. That's where the control mechanism is. Organ harvesting of the golem. Also think about handmade tale. Yeah, of course you are. And do you know when that really went off? The Richter scale in the Yugoslavian war. They were picking people off the street. Yeah, and then before long, one of their organs would be in an hospital in Germany or Israel, going into some very wealthy hoity-toity. That's where it really kicked off. China have got very excited about it. Because it's not about your race, it's about your blood type. That's all they're interested in. This is why some of these old, like Kissinger, can keep going and keep going. You just think what he's doing in order to keep himself from popping his clogs. You know, this is so it is going on. We know it is, and it's getting much bigger. But again, this is where they've got you blagged. You're concentrating on like Q-tard stuff. Oh, what they're doing to kiddies and taking their organs. Yes, okay, they may be. But you're all signing up to have me organs done. Yeah, take me kids' organs. Do you know what you need to know about how they do this? If you have got your child down for organ donation, they cannot take the organs off a dead child. Right? Can't do it. The child has to be alive. Or the male, the human, the grown-up, whatever. Has to be alive while they remove them. Now what they do is inject you with drugs that paralyse you. And you can feel everything that they do. So if you've got your little offspring up for this, because he has to be alive when they take him out. So if you ever see a dead child, sometimes they might have comatose that you think it's dead. It's in a sort of state that you this is where it's going on. Under your nose. And you're all signing off on, yeah, you can have the kids' organs. Who's responsible? There's the trafficking. There's the organ trafficking. No hide world news. Now you'll notice this stopped in 2018. About the time, such as Adam Green and others, and then me, started bringing up and pushing the no hide system. Because until then, nobody had a clue it existed. Okay. President Trump declares Education and Sharing Day. That's the day the President of the United States every year signs off on the no hide. Huh? That's what Trump is. I'll put these up as you always do so you can have a look. I've got another one for you. It is a tree of life for those who hold fast to it. That's not you. The divine code of 7 Noahide commandments. It never was commandments, it was laws. 3rd edition. Looks like there's a lot of name stealing going on there. PhD, that's a big red flag for a start. Published by Ask Noah International. Table of contents, starting from a moral code that unites all mankind. Does it? Who's mankind? I'm man, male. I'm not kind, a man. Okay? But that will fill your warning. 7 commandments, an introduction. The prohibition of idolatry. You're all classed as idolaters. Even Islam. After. Prohibition of blasphemy. What's blasphemy? Who's deciding blasphemy and against what? Prohibition of murder and injury. The prohibition of eating meat that was removed from a living animal. Prohibition of theft. Prohibition of forbidden sexual relations. Obligation for laws and courts. There you go. Every court that's ever going to be is going to be under this. What other righteous traditions are accepted by mankind after the flood. So that's your Noah. Now, I need to get into this because I've gone wabbiting on and on and on and on and we haven't even gone into main subject matter. But I want to show you something. Ukraine warns Russia might attack the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. How worried should we be? Okay. Russian troops have placed objects with explosives on roofs, blah 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 blah. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Soros said in a video address Tuesday. That instantly sparked concerns around the world. Perhaps to simulate attack on the plant, perhaps they have some other scenarios, so let's speculate it. Okay, so what they're doing now is terrifying you and getting you ready to think there's going to be another Chernobyl. Yeah? Remember, Chernobyl is to the west. Sorry. Chernobyl is to the east of Blighty, but yet the biggest area that they attacked with it was Cumbria, where all the farmers were. Right? That was the first attack on the farmers up in Cumbria, so they could get the property. The second would be CJD, then foot and mouth. Right? Farmers were going bankrupt left, right and centre. plutonium deception. Galen Windsor, this guy was at the top of his game in America's nuclear industry, right? He was the auditor, so he knew everything about everything that they were needed to know. And there's a video, I suggest you have a look at that, because it's dynamite. He makes it clear that it were all about changing the powers they have over health and safety. And he says, Galen Windsor was asked a simple question: how dangerous is a nuclear plant? He replied, a nuclear reactor plant is just a way to boil water. That's the cleanest, neatest, most economical way to boil water you've ever seen. And so in my estimation, nuclear reactors should be insured under the same insurance policy as any other steam boiler plant, power generating plant. And to have special consideration under the Price-Anderson Act means the insurance industry have already paid off the Congress, so they can have a big rip-off, charging even higher in insurance premiums, total coverage much greater for non-existent risk. What a racket. They also made a big play and tells you about it, how they introduced the health and safety shit under this game, that first. Now in this video he shows you he eats it, plutonium, he handles it, he used to swim in the cooling waters every day, all the years that he were operating in that capacity. Plutonium. Where are we? Both plutonium-239 and plutonium-234 are fissile, meaning that they can sustain a nuclear chain reaction leading to applications in nuclear weapons. So something has to be done to it before it can do that. And nuclear reactors. Plutonium-240 exhibits a higher rate of spontaneous fission, raising the neutron flux of any sample containing it. The presence of plutonium-240 limits the plutonium sample's usability for weapons or its quality as reactor fuel. And the percentage of plutonium-240 determines its grade. So plutonium of itself isn't radioactive. It has to be weaponized for that. It says the presence of plutonium-240 limits a plutonium sample usability for weapons or its quality as a reactor fuel. And the percentage of plutonium-240 determines its grade. So it's either weapons grade, is any fissionable nuclear material that is pure enough to make a nuclear weapon, or has properties that make it particularly suitable for nuclear weapon use. Plutonium and uranium in grades normally used in nuclear weapons are the most common examples. So it has to be purified to be used for weapons. So this grade in here is determining whether it's weapons grade, fuel grade, or reactor grade. So there you can see, it's not as they present it to you. All radioactive. It's not. These nuclear power stations are not radioactive. If they were to blow up, it would be no different or worse than a boiler, water boiler blowing up. But what's they're presenting it everywhere as, oh my God, we're all going to get nuked, so to speak. Now, going back to what I said to you before about, I'm saying the irradiated Cumbria, it's nonsense. But yet, when you get back to last year, 2020, how originally the script was about radiating people in Wuhan who were dropping because they couldn't transmute oxygen, could be the script for the autumn, whereby they're trying to scare you all to death and they're going to do another radiation session on you through your router, your phone, the tech that they've got set up everywhere. Because bear in mind, people, the internet exists underground. That's how we pay for it, because we pay for BT. They're now shoving you on 6G on a line outside that the state doesn't own. They want you on that, while the military-industrial complex takes what is ours, that's underground, the copper. Alright? And they've used this nonsense fibre broadband. It's garbage. It's a load of bullshit. They can turn the power up and down, whether it's on copper or not. So I think this is a script, and my apologies, because I'm going to give it a little bit more attention than I'm actually giving it right now, because I rabbited on quite a bit too long. That would be my concern. We're too late now, really, to get into this black nobility thing, which is probably a good thing, because this is important, because as I said, we can start to pick it up off where we've already looked at through the Middle Ages, etc., giving black nobility power over the Vatican, because of course the Vatican couldn't side with Cosimo de' Medici or the original Holy See families, because it undermined the actual church doctrine itself. So they had to side with the black nobility. Now this is interesting because it's claiming that it's only just started that not long ago, 1929, which is pure garbage, but it's worth seeing it for what it is. And I think what we'll have to do is crack on with this again next week. So there we go, folks. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I will say to you, have a good week. I hope that made a bit of sense. And don't let them get away with this script that they're pushing now with this radioactive shite, because it's full of garbage. There's no radiation. Fukushima's a lie. Chernobyl was a lie. And if they blow the shit out of this nuclear power station in the Ukraine, there will be no radiation whatsoever. None. Absolutely not. But all the crops that they grow on these land that they've just been given will be GMO. That'll be causing everybody problems. What are they going to blame? You got it. With that, folks, I'll say have a good week. Till the next time.
electronic